Hello, and welcome to another very special episode of Cube 360. I'm here in Tokyo, Japan, at my friend Lars's house, and he has a Super Famicom. That's a Super Nintendo that was released only in Japan. Super Famicom, let's take a look at that over there. So that's the Super Famicom right there. Looks very similar to a Super Nintendo, just a little bit different shape. We got some arcade sticks here. We're going to be playing, we're going to be testing out some Japanese games that were only released in Japan here, and I'll be giving you a little bit of a review of each of the games. There's going to be 6 games here that I'm going to be showing you here. The games are down here. So let's take a look at those games quickly here. There's this one, UFO. Then there's this other one with this girl on it. Ghost Sweeper. And then we got Kamen Rider. Let's beat him up there. We got a game here with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck.
No, Mickey's Tokyo Disney.
Mickey's Tokyo Disney.
Disneyland Dive.
Yeah. And then we have, what's the next one here?
Goku Atencio.
Goku Atencio. And last we have Proteus. I may not play them in that particular order, but those are the 6 games we have for you today. So let's pop them in and check each of them out. Alright, folks, let's open up with Proteus. So, what is Proteus? Well, it's a ship game. You know, you've seen one, you've seen them all. You got 4 characters. You got Vic Viper, you got Octopus, you got Twin Bee, and you got a penguin here. Those are your characters to choose from. What is it? Proteus is a series that is basically a horizontal shooting, scrolling shooter developed by Konami. The games are tongue-in-cheek parodies of Gradius, believe it or not, hence the name, a parody of Gradius. Proteus and Gradius put together. It also adds features from other games here and there, including Castlevania, Rocket Knight Adventures, Contra, Lethal Enforcers, and Twin Bee. Basically, what is Proteus? Well, Proteus, that's what I said. What I mentioned. It's a game based on Gradius. There's 5 games in this series. The first one debuting on the Japanese system, the MSX, in 1988. Then the arcade in 1999, and then an arcade again in 1994. Followed by the Super Famicom version in 1995, which would be this one. And then finally back to the arcade in 1996 called Sexy Proteus. There's been numerous ports of the series to the Game Boy, Famicom, PlayStation, Saturn, and PC Engine. But only a couple of these were released outside of Japan, in Europe. And none of them were actually ever released in the United States. Well, there you go. Next up here is Mickey's Great Adventure Tokyo Disneyland Daiboken, or something like that. All those words are somewhere there, here or there. What is this game? Well, this is a platformer here. Mickey Mouse, you know, you played one, you played them all. It's kind of like a Magical Quest and that kind of a style. The plot is Mickey's taking a trip to Tokyo Disneyland, but when he arrives, he finds out that Minnie and his friends have been kidnapped, and the park has been hijacked by none other than Pete. You know, that crazy Goof Troop Goofy's neighbor, that Pete guy, remember him? Yeah. So basically, Mickey has nothing but a combination of 2 balloons here. He has a helium balloon and a water balloon backpack, and he just gallivants around the park with these balloons, you know, chucking water balloons at people and using his gas one to climb in the air and maneuver around. Basically, the game was released by a company called Tomy on December 16th, 1994, exclusively in Japan. So this is an exclusive title to Japan. And yeah, that's about it for that game. Alright, why don't you tell us what's up next?
UFO.
UFO?
You're right, Lars, you're right, it is UFO. Well, this game was developed by actually UFO's Fried Noodles, and the game is based on their products, believe it or not. It features a guy named Yakisoban, a superhero that has Yakisoba powers. Set in the galaxy 10 billion kilometers away from Earth, Yakisoban is the prince of the planet. And he's on a quest to save Princess Mayumi, who is kidnapped by, get this, the evil Kettlehead Kethra. Yeah. That's exciting, isn't it? Oh boy. A unicycle.
You're right, Lars, you're right. He is on one of those unicycles. What a crazy guy, eh? Including that, he has also other powers, you know, basic punches and kicks, you know, and he also can charge up a noodle power by holding the punch button, and he can chuck some sauce at his enemies. Look at these crazy enemies here. The first edition of the game was actually given away as a promotional gift by the Dried Noodle Company itself, and the second edition was then sold in shops. Surprisingly, it didn't stop as a video game. There was actually a TV character, a series, and a movie made as well, believe it or not. Wow, would you look at that? Okay, next up is Goku Atencio. I hope I got that right this time. Anyway, it's an arcade beat-em-up originally developed by SNK in the early 90s. SNK was known for their side-scrolling and beat-em-ups that were very popular in Japan, and they were Capcom's true arcade rival. Capcom kind of leads the airwaves now, with games. This game is kind of a inferior port to the original, actually, though. A lot of gamers do not prefer this one, and they tell you to stay far away from this one. Although you do get power-ups to change yourself into dog and ninjas and stuff like that. The levels are tedious, long, boring. The levels really just go on forever. It's not a lot of fun. The game was supported by the Neo Geo, and had an exact replica, but when it was ported to the Super Famicom, it was developed by Data East. And basically they butchered the game in every aspect, re-rendering the sprites, redrawing the levels, creating everything, stuff like that. The series spawned a few other sequels as well, Sengoku 3 being one of the best and most popular of the series, and that was released in 2001 for the Neo Geo after SNK filed for bankruptcy in 2000. The franchise was then picked up by a company called Noise Factory, which also helped work on SNK's King of Fighters and Metal Slug 9. So they were familiar with the game franchise, so they just kind of picked it up. Next up is Ghost Sweeper. Here we go. It's a comedic horror manga series, and it's published by the weekly manga magazine Shosen Sunday. It was from 1991 to 1999. It's kind of like Castlevania and Splatterhouse, kind of like a mix of that. It's kind of like a horror comic thing. The series had adapted 45 anime episode television series called Ghost Sweeper Makimi, which was from 95 to 94. The story is basically Japan's overcrowding problem has made the ghosts and spirits lose their homes, and due to the problems caused by homeless spirits, a young lady named Raiko and her two assistants created a new profession, the Ghost Sweepers Private Exorcists for Hire. Ooh, scary, eh? It's basically a platforming game here. There's about 7 levels. It's kind of horror-related. It takes elements from different games. Power up your weapon, use special attacks. I like this game a lot. Alright folks, let's get ready for Kamen Rider. I think this is my favorite one of the series of games we played. So basically, what is Kamen Rider? Well, it was a weekly sci-fi story created in Japan and debuted as a television series in April of 1971. It ran until February of 1973. Only lasted 98 episodes. But it doesn't stop there. A manga adaptation was also featured in the Shosen magazine around the same time. And the series then spawned many sequels and evolved into its own franchise, including 3 films in the 70s and 2 reboot films, 2005 and 2007. Basically, it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up for 2 players. You go you start off as the human characters, and if you got a button that actually changes yourself into Kamen Rider. So if you get your health low enough, you hit your button, and then it's kind of like getting a free health bar. Right? As soon as you die, you can press this button and become Kamen Rider. Well, as you can see right here. See, Lars just pressed the Kamen Rider button here, and he had his life down, and then now he's back. So he's got full, and you're a little stronger with Kamen Rider as well. Kamen Rider also has a different combination of attacks that he can use. I'll tell you in a second. But basically, the story takes place in a world plagued by Shocker, a mysterious terrorist organization. To further its plans for world domination, Shocker recruited its agents through kidnapping, turning their victims into mutants, cyborgs, and brainwashing them. One of the victims, named Takeshi Hongo, escaped before the final brainwashing, and he became this grasshopper-themed, altered human, Superman, Kamen Rider. Basically, as I was mentioning here, every few levels you get this option to switch your combination attack. Your R button and your L button on the top of the controller do different things, only when you're Kamen Rider. And you can obviously fight huge bosses. Alright folks, well thank you very much for watching this episode of the Cube 360. This is the Japanese edition. And what did we do today? Well, back here we played Super Famicom here in Japan, Tokyo. We played 6 different games here, wide from varieties, different beat-em-ups and platformers and all that different kind of stuff. So, I gave you a little bit brief synopsis on each of the game, about 2 minutes while we played them there. I just want to give you my final thoughts, my final opinion on the 2 best games of the bunch here, the ones that I thought kind of stood out. So, for the best 2-player game here, I really go for Kamen Rider. It's just unfortunate that this game was not released in North America. I think it's because the show was never really
popular there. It never really broke into the market. I didn't think they really would have gotten it. It was kind of like a Japanese-only thing. So do check this game out if you get a chance to play a Super Famicom. Get a friend and play this game. It's a tough game. It's really cool though. And for a first-player game, Ghost Sweeper with this little Japanese anime hot chick on here. Ghost Sweeper, as you saw, it was kind of like a mix of Splatterhouse meets Castlevania. So that's a cool game as well for one player. So those are my recommendations here for out of the Super Famicom Japanese-only release games. So thank you very much for watching this episode of the Cube 360, and we hope to see you next time. And how about you just say goodbye to everyone too?
Goodbye.
Oh shit. It got hit. It was like filming the curtain.
Oh.
Alright, so next up, folks, is Sengoku Densoyo.
No.
Well, close enough. Alright, let's get going. Alright, next up here, folks, is Sengoku Densu. Oh.
No.